We're now about to go live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now live.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:01. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I am in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning, Pete. No mic. There you go. Put yourself on there, my friend.
Oy vey. I need to get a new computer. This one's starting to get a little tired.
Is it just getting a little wonky?
Well, yeah, because the software keeps updating, and this now is 5 years old, so it's time for a replacement.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way about my phone. I won't even tell you what Samsung number it is because it's way back when, and it was fine. This is what kills me about phones. There's nothing wrong with it. And then I got this message about a month ago that, you have to update your everything because we don't use this anymore. So Grace did all that for me, and now it's just so slow.
And the problem is some of the software that I use on my phone was great. I love my camera and everything on that phone, but they're not supporting the version of Android anymore.
Right. And I think
that's the planned obsolescence.
Yeah.
You know where all our phones go? They all go to Africa and stuff.
And it just, it just kills me because I love my phone and I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem with it, but it is okay. Now they're doing the Samsung Galaxy 23. Mine's a 7. Yeah.
I remember we talked about it before.
And I just, it's just killing me. So, and I got anyway, but it, now I don't have a choice because it's just so slow. I mean, everything. It's like watching the little, clock thing go around and around. But anyway, so I feel your pain, Pete. I know, is this going to be in the budget? What do we do? It's budget season. That's all I'm hearing about from Mike Squindo. So I have money in the equipment budget. Yeah. I plan for things like this. Yeah, you have to.
I tried to keep things going as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, as we all do.
Upgrades and things like that. And it's just, it doesn't have enough horsepower because I'm trying to run the camera station client right now and it's just taking forever to start. It's come on, guys, you got stuff to do here. I don't have time for this.
I know. That's my thing. It's I don't have time for this. I just don't have time for this. So, Pete, we have another weather event coming in tomorrow.
Yeah. This one's not going to be a lot of snow.
No.
It's going to be a lot of ice.
I know. And it's going to be really tricky. So I'm going to make this announcement now, and I'm going to make it several times because I have 30 phone calls that I've got to make today and explain this to people. So tomorrow, of course, is tax day. So we had last week, all of our taxes were canceled. So we had to reschedule everyone. So we had a full tax day. And when I say full, I mean absolutely maxed out on Monday. So it was day one. The tax preparers, our AARP tax aides, there you go, did a fabulous job. So I just want to thank Dan Welch and the 9 tax aides that we have working with us this year. They were right on the money. It was first day. So some of the delays were just, you're using a new system because that changes every year with AARP and with the IRS and all that good stuff. But so tomorrow, all right, if the schools have a delay, it will likely be a 2-hour delay, which means that we would have a 2-hour delay, which means we would open at 10. If that is the case, if you are scheduled to have your taxes done tomorrow, the drop-off period instead of 8:45 to 9 will be 9:45 to 10. So the drop-off period is just going to be off by 1 hour. Everything else stays the same. You have to be home in order to, if they have any questions for you, and you'll be coming back later in the day. And likely it'll be a little bit later than usual just because we would be starting late. That is only if there is a delayed opening. Now, if they cancel school and we're closed, we got to reschedule all 30 of you, to another day. That's on us, and we will call you starting Friday, and we'll reschedule.
The problem is there's going to be light snow through 3 a.m.
Right.
And then from 4 to almost 10, it's going to be freezing rain.
Okay, therein lies the problem. So I just don't know, and we live in New England, and we do still have slots available at the end of March, and we're doing that on purpose because, we've already had 2 events, weather events, and, of course, we're really only into mid-February.
We're having a traditional New England Christmas, or New England winter. This is what I remember.
This is it. Yeah, this is it,
You get
folks.
a snow every once in a while, and it just, they're small, and they just keep adding up.
They just pile up. Yep. And in between, you get sometimes those freezing rains, and, we just deal with them as they come. So
the last 10 years, we've had these long stretches of dry weather and then these blockbuster storms and then nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
This is what I remember as a kid.
Yeah, so do I. Just like multiple, like every, a couple times a week, you're looking at the weather. And then is there something coming there?
For the weekend.
Yeah, for the weekend, like Saturday into Sunday, I think was the next thing that they were talking about.
And that they're talking about 6 inches of snow for that one.
Yeah.
Before
Now,
it
of course,
changes
Monday
over.
we have off from, the kids are off from school. It's a President's Day, so City Hall's closed. So we don't have any taxes on Monday. Thank the Lord. That's why I said to Gary, I was like, I don't care what happens on Monday. We're off anyway.
That one's a long duration event. That's going to start like noon Saturday and go right through like almost midnight, 1 a.m. on Sunday. That's a long duration event.
Yes,
for the
it
weekend.
is. I didn't realize it was starting that early on Saturday.
Yeah, that's what they're predicting on the weather.
Okay.
I go by Weather Underground. They're pretty good about their granular forecasts.
Yeah.
And that's what they're showing right now for the weekend. I mean, we're still a ways out. We're still 72 hours out, so that's subject to change.
Yeah,
but
it could change,
that the numbers have been creeping up all week. It started at about 4 inches.
Yeah.
Been creeping up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, and there, now for me, it's not only am I dealing with taxes and all of that stuff, I'm trying to get a newsletter out because the newsletter comes out very early this month because it's a short month and the last Saturday falls on like the 22nd. It's crazy. So I got to get that newsletter to Jim Corwin, my good friend Jim at the paper, by Saturday. So I'm trying to time all this. Of course, I have Mimsy duty. And, Grace is trying to get all of her externship hours in for VCA. And in order to do that, she's having to use multiple sites. So she's actually going to be going to Connecticut today, like an hour into Connecticut. Not like, infield over the border. But
yeah, welcome to my world.
Yes, exactly. Welcome to your world, Pete. So she's going to be doing that. But, it's a little challenging when you have a 1.5-year-old and you're doing school and,
Sunday's forecast is interesting because it's going to snow. Then it's going to be freezing rain till about 10 o'clock in the morning. Then plain rain during the day.
Which will melt some of the snow that just happened.
But then switching back to rain and snow around 6 or 7 o'clock at night and finishing as snow showers.
Yeah. Well, again, the lucky thing is Monday. A lot of things are closed on Monday because of President's Day. So we have Monday to catch up and hunker down. And
I'm probably going to have to come in and do shows on Monday because we're backed up. So
yeah. Speaking of shows, Pete, I wanted to compliment. I don't know who sent the press release into the Westfield News. They did a lovely press release on Friday morning's show that Mark Auerbach.
Survivor Stories?
No, the one on the
Burridge Brothers.
The Burridge Brothers.
Yeah,
so
Mark
tell us
sent
about
that.
That's a wonderful article. Mark must have sent that in, and it's long. I mean, it's a press release, but it gives a lot of detail.
Yeah. So Westfield has been fortunate. They had two brothers. Both in the theater arts that came out of Westfield High School in the last 10 years maybe?
Okay.
Or less.
Okay. So they're fairly young.
10 years, yeah. They're both young guys.
Okay.
They're both based out of New York now. One is a dance captain on a major Broadway show.
Wow,
and
that's
the other one
very
is
impressive.
Got a show in development or in rehearsals that's coming out soon. So you'll find out about the show, but they're both having successful careers on Broadway right now.
That is really, really special. And so that's going to be aired on this Friday at 8 o'clock, right? Is that right?
Yeah,
is that what I saw?
I think you got it in, yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, and there's a nice article if you'd like to read it in today's Westfield News. It's under the press release, so I think it's like maybe page 3 or page 5, one of those. Yep. And on page 1, I guess there's a big debate on what we're doing with Westfield High School and whether they're going to submit a statement of interest.
The superintendent originally wanted to build a comprehensive school, which would encompass both the Westfield High School and technical school into one big comprehensive school.
Right.
Similar to what Chicopee wanted to do at one point, but they had to keep it separate too. Mm-hmm. Apparently, there's more interest in upgrading technical schools right now by the state than to have a comprehensive school. So I believe that what Kenny briefed me on, because he was at the meeting the other night, is that they're going to try to go after a new Westfield Technical Academy as their next project.
What about Westfield High School?
Apparently there's no appetite from the state right now to do that project. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't read the whole article. I saw the headline.
I didn't either.
Going,
That's just what I kind of heard from Kenny yesterday.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I could be wrong. Don't kill me.
Well, you know what? It's on the front page of the Westfield News. So if you want the real scoop on what's going on and not just Pete and me going, oh, we saw some headlines, get a copy of the Westfield News.
Or you
it's
can
all
watch
in
the
detail.
meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too.
On
Watch the
Vimeo.
meeting. Yep.
You can watch the meeting on Vimeo, and you'll see the superintendent's presentation on that.
Yeah, that was at last Thursday's council meeting, right?
No, the council meeting was yesterday. Or Monday.
Oh, that's right. It was Monday. It was the 10th.
Because
that's right,
of the
because
snow.
of the snow. Okay. I was
Yeah,
going
they
to say, that's
rescheduled
right.
to
They did say
yesterday.
February 10th, and I thought to myself, why is that date familiar?
Yep.
Okay, because that was our first tax date. All right. So that was that. I talked to you. There was something else I was saying. Well, what did you do this weekend, Pete? Anything fun and exciting, interesting?
Christy came up on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And the dog is starting to get used to the house.
Okay,
so that's good.
yeah. We're doing an acclimation period.
Well, and she's also starting to put her touches on the house because she's been moving in this summer. So she said, I'm going to paint the bathroom.
Okay.
Okay, whatever you want. It doesn't bother me. I don't care.
Now, Pete, you rent the house, so is everything, copacetic with your landlord
Yeah,
on,
he said
on
I
that
could
kind
paint.
of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
He always said we could paint.
Most
That's
of
not a big
them,
deal.
most of the time they do.
Yep. So she painted the bathroom, and then I cooked for Super Bowl.
Oh, I
Super
forgot
Bowl
there was a
Sunday.
Super Bowl. That's right, there was Super Bowl.
There was a
Sunday.
big game in between.
It was so funny because I really was not particularly fond of either team. So I didn't have I was out of every pool that I had been in. I was long ago because I had Buffalo playing Detroit in the Super Bowl. Well, they were both out. So, but I said to Grace, so Grace had the game on. And I said to her, well, listen, if it's a good game, I love football. So if it's a good game, I'd love to see some of it. And
right.
So she kept reporting back and saying, it's not a good game, Mom. You're not missing a darn thing.
Right. And then long ago and far away, it's just, I was like, I stayed up until about the third quarter. And then I was like, I need to get some sleep.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of boring.
Yeah, it's just
the halftime show was,
I heard that. I'm not usually a big one for halftime shows anyway because
I can't deal with sorry, I have to have a little singing. It was all rap.
Oh.
The whole thing was rap.
Okay.
And I was like,
yeah.
And it wasn't good because I couldn't understand what he was saying. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm getting too old.
I know. Don't you feel like, sometimes I feel like that.
I understand. You can have mix it up a little bit. There's more than just one audience, right? Mm. And they're playing to one audience. So that's
what? I think that Jay Lucas should handle the halftime show, the Super Bowl halftime show, and give us some good stuff.
Just mix it up.
Yep.
It should be a variety show reflecting everybody.
It's a multi-generational audience. Come on. You got people of all
Correct.
ages watching the Super Bowl, from kids all the way up to, my seniors.
Correct. So and then Christy also has flexibility, and she works from home, a couple days a week. So she stayed Monday and worked from home. But I had a crazy day. While we're doing the show, I got to import some footage off that camera you're borrowing because I did Michael Buster McMahon's show. Then I was invited by Skyline Brewery to do a canning session with them. We're going to do a short piece on a canning, how they do their canning.
Okay.
Of the Irish Goodbye beer. So we're doing that.
Great.
And then I came back here and did something. I was on the go all day.
Yeah. Yep.
And then my brother had remodeled the office over at his business, and they needed to get everything back together. So I had to run over there after work and get all the wires set so his staff could move back in from home to the office and set up all their gear and be ready to go. So I didn't get home till I was planning on having dinner with Christy, but I didn't get done till almost 7. So I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I know. It's that is the life that we lead.
I'm trying to scale back a little bit, but there was no way around this one.
It's really hard, Pete. As you know, I am as well. But Monday, first day of taxes, I was there at 8:00 in the morning. We were out, starting to collect our envelopes at 8:30. Because as soon as the cars start lining up, Barb Martone and I usually go out. We say it's 15-minute window, but we'll go out early if the cars start lining up. And because my preparers were coming, and they like to get started as soon as they walk in the door, so we had all of that to do. And honestly, by the time we finished everything and got everybody reviewed at the end of the day, it was like about 4:00, and then I had all the stuff that I normally would have to do, but I was doing taxes because in the old days I had Mary Lou to kind of help me up and back me up a little bit, and we don't have a Mary Lou in that position yet, and it won't happen before the budget, the end of the fiscal year. So I'm running solo a little bit, and and everybody's helping out. I mean, it's not just me, but some of those responsibilities are.
That's how I feel with stuff during the day. I used to have a person that was available during the day, and they're not available anymore. So it's like I have to say no to stuff, or say, I need the students to step up and do something, because I can't be in two places at once. And if you want to do a shoot off site, that's great, but I still have responsibilities here every morning, and I can't run over there and set up and be on the air here. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, you can't be in two places at once, and that's what I'm finding, the same thing. And we've gotten some new volunteers that are helping out at the center. I have to give a shout out to my tax volunteer, Bill Nemec, has been with me. This is his second year. He's in the tax work-off program that we run with the city, and he specifically works with me on the AARP tax program. I could not do it without Bill. He's very flexible. He's doing confirmation phone calls for me, packet pickup. He has assembled all the packets.
Stuff, right?
Yeah, he's doing a lot of that. And, it's gotten to the point now, and I was telling my husband, Gary, this yesterday, and Gary said, that's really fantastic, Tina. I said, I had something else going on yesterday morning. I couldn't even tell you what it was, and I wasn't going to get there till a little later. But I had everything set up for Bill, and I was like, here you go. You know what to do. You don't need me there. Go ahead and get started. I'll be there, whenever.
When you can trust somebody to do that, that's huge.
It's fantastic. And I have to tell you, by the time I got in, he was making phone calls for people to come and pick up their tax packets. We're doing this very methodically and certain dates and so forth. Really, I knew what he was doing, and I was like, well, he knows what to do. He's done this for 2 years. And so, that piece of it. And he's able now to come to me and say, okay, Tina, we're running out of this, this, and this. We have to make up packets. We have to do this. We have to put labels on the cinch. I'm like, okay, you know what to do. I will do my part in order to have everything available for you so you could do yours. So huge shout out to Bill Nemec. I, couldn't do it without him. That is for sure. All right, it is 6:17. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. We'll do some birthdays when we get back, but obviously everybody knows Monday is President's Day. The 12th, Wednesday the 12th, is actually Abraham Lincoln's birthday. In the old days, I'm really dating myself.
Yeah.
We used to get both Lincoln's birthday off and Washington's birthday off, but we didn't have that 1 week thing in between. Mm-hmm. That started during the energy crisis, when they really wanted to close everything down for a week and save money on heating bills. So, but today is Lincoln's birthday. We'll talk about that when we get back. We're going to listen to Dion singing Abraham, Martin, and John. We'll be back.
Anybody here seen my old friend Abraham? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seemed good they die young. I just looked around and he's gone. Anybody here seen my old friend John? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seemed good they die young. I just looked around and he's gone. Anybody here Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seemed good they die young. I just looked around and he's gone. Didn't you love the things that they stood for? Didn't they try to find some good for you and me? And we'll be free someday soon. He's gonna be one day. Anybody here see my old friend Bobby? Can you tell me where he's gone? I thought I saw him walking up over the hill with Abraham and Martin and John.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:22. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses, and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
All right, so February 12th, famous birthdays. We have the late Abraham Lincoln, 16th President of the United States, born on this day in 1809 in Hodgenville, Kentucky. Died on April 15th, 1865, at the age of 56. Regularly regarded as one of the great American presidents, Abraham Lincoln became president in 1861 amid a crisis over slavery in the Union. Shortly after his election, 7 southern states seceded and formed the Confederate States, beginning the American Civil War. An incredibly astute politician, Lincoln outmaneuvered several political enemies in his time. His oratory and writing appealed to the American people, particularly his Gettysburg Address, which became an iconic endorsement of democracy. As the war came to an end, Lincoln made several moves to abolish slavery. In 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which made more than 3 million slaves free. In early 1865, he pushed Congress to pass the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which permanently ended slavery. Shortly before the end of the conflict, John Wilkes Booth assassinated Lincoln as he watched a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. So happy birthday to the late Abraham Lincoln. It is also the birthday of singer, songwriter, keyboardist, and record producer Michael McDonald, born on this day in 1952 in St. Louis, Missouri. He's 73 years old today. Michael McDonald is known for his distinctive, soulful voice and as a member of the bands The Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan. McDonald wrote and sang several hit singles with the Doobie Brothers, including What a Fool Believes, Minute by Minute, and Taking It to the Streets. McDonald has also performed as a prominent backing vocalist on numerous recordings by artists including Steely Dan, Christopher Cross, and Kenny Loggins. He is considered an influential figure in the development of the yacht rock genre. Say that 3 times fast. Yacht rock genre.
And one of the most humble singers.
Is he really?
Everybody I've ever seen that's talked about him just say he's just one of the most humble guys.
Oh, cool. I love that. I love to hear that. He has also recorded for television and film soundtracks. McDonald is the recipient of 5 Grammy Awards and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Doobie Brothers in 2020. So happy 73rd birthday to Michael McDonald. Well, just moving right along with our musical
Keep going.
birthdays. There we go. It is the birthday of singer, songwriter, bassist Jim Cregan, born on this day in 1970 in Scarborough, Canada. He's 55 years old today. Jim Cregan is the bassist for Canadian alternative rock band Bare Naked Ladies, which was formed in 1988. I can't believe that Bare Naked Ladies was formed in 1988.
Well, they hit in the 90s, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting old, Pete. I just feel like, was that
90s
like
and 2000s.
was that 10 years ago or something? Not really. The band developed a cult following in Canada with their self-titled 1991 cassette. That's how old they are, cassette.
Yeah.
Becoming the first independent release to be certified gold in Canada. Their debut album featuring the singles If I Had a $1,000,000 and Brian Wilson was released in 1992. The band's style has evolved throughout their career, and their music now encompasses a mixture of pop, rock, hip-hop, and rap. Bare Naked Ladies have won multiple Juno Awards, that's the Canadian equivalent of the Grammys, and they've been nominated for 2 Grammy Awards. The group has sold over 15 million records, including albums and singles, and they were inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame in March of 2018. 1 Week remains the band's most successful single. Other well-known singles include It's All Been Done, Pinch Me, and The History of Everything, which is the theme song to the sitcom The Big Bang Theory. So happy 55th birthday to Jim Cregan. It is also the birthday of the late NBA basketball player Bill Russell, born on this day in 1934 in West Monroe, Louisiana. He died July 31st, 2022 at the age of 88. So Bill Russell lived a good long life. Bill Russell's 6'9" frame earned plenty of attention in high school and college. In the fall of 1952, he tried out as a walk-on at the University of San Francisco, and he earned a scholarship. During his 3-year varsity career, in which he led the team to consecutive NCAA titles in 1955 and 1956, he averaged 20.7 points a game and 20.3 rebounds per game. Bill Russell capped his amateur career by leading the U.S. men's basketball team to the gold medal at the 1956 Melbourne Olympics. That same year, in the NBA draft, the Boston Celtics orchestrated a deal for the draft rights to the young center. With Russell anchoring the middle of the floor, the Celtics finished with the NBA's best record in 1957 and went on to win the title over the Hawks in a tense 7-game series. It was the start of an unprecedented championship run for Russell and the Boston Celtics. Over his 13 seasons in the league, the team played in 12 of the 13 NBA finals, winning 11 of them. Quite impressive. So happy birthday to the late Bill Russell. And I think I have one more birthday. We'll do one more birthday, and then we'll take a break. It is the birthday of the late Lorne Greene, actor, singer, born on this day in 1915. Thank you, Pete. I was
You're not going to play the one that you think.
I was wondering. Yeah, right. Born in Ottawa, Canada. His death date was September 11th, 1987. He died at the age of 72. Lorne Greene began acting while attending Canada's Queen's University. After graduation, he got a job in radio broadcasting. His rich, deep, authoritarian voice quickly propelled him to prominence as Canada's top newscaster. He left Canada in the early 1950s for a film career in Hollywood and soon began appearing regularly in television, films, and on radio. The first of Lorne Greene's continuing TV roles was as the patriarch Ben Pa Cartwright in Bonanza, the first one-hour Western series filmed in color. The show ran for 14 years, making Green a household name. I didn't realize Bonanza was on that long.
Oh, yeah.
I was surprised. 14 years. I was really surprised. Green played another patriarchal figure in the science fiction television series Battlestar Galactica from 1978 to 79, and then Galactica in 1980. In 2007, TV Guide listed Ben Cartwright as the nation's second most popular TV father, behind Cliff Huxtable. In the 1990s, Green devoted his energies to wildlife and environmental issues, including hosting and narrating the nature series Lorne Green's New Wilderness, a show that promoted environmental awareness. So, yeah, I remember Lorne Green as Pa in Bonanza, you know.
And I remember from Battlestar Galactica.
I knew that's why I knew that was that was your thing. I was like, okay, that's Pete.
But I watched Bonanza on reruns as a kid because remember it was going for so long. It ran in reruns forever
for a
when
long
I was
time.
a kid.
Yeah, he was great.
So
That was a fun show. Mm-hmm. All right, it is 6:31. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses, and
now
WCPC.
for the smooth sounds of Michael
I
McDonald.
know this is going to be Michael McDonald. We'll listen to the Doobie Brothers singing "What a Fool Believes" in honor of the birthday of Michael McDonald. We'll be back.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
I'm Mark Auerbach. Join me every Friday at 8 a.m. for ArtsBeat, where you'll meet interesting actors, directors, designers, and musicians here in Western New England.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:36. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses, and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
So, Pete, I had this interesting experience in Big Y a few days ago. I was at the Big Y on Silver Street, the little Big Y, as I call it. And I walked in, I'm pushing my cart, I'm in the produce section, just got there, and this man is staring at me. And he's got a hooded sweatshirt on, and he's got his hands in his pocket, and he says to me, "Are you on Channel 15?" And I said, he took me by surprise. I didn't recognize him. I have no idea who he was. And I said, "Yes." And he just stared at me again, and I said, "Yes." And then he just turned around and walked away like, "Okay, all right. Well, that's where I recognize you from."
You just had a Patrick Murray moment.
Oh, my goodness. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I was like, at first I was like, huh? What? Channel? Well, oh, yes, I am. So how fun is that?
You can tell Patrick that.
I am going to tell Patrick that. Hey, listen,
You're becoming a local celebrity.
I know. Well, I talked to my brother I called my brother and sister-in-law. They live down in Tennessee.
Yep.
So just, kind of checking in just to see what's happening down there. Lots of family dynamics going on. My niece, their daughter is moving from Shreveport, Louisiana, back up to Tennessee. Husband got a brand new job, super happy. They're happy to be closer to, to the grandparents because they have a 5-year-old and one on the way.
Sure, there you go.
So anyway, so I had sent Dave, my brother Dave, and my sister-in-law Karen, the link to the mass appeals that I had done, because I did 2 mass appeals during the month of December, one on taxes and one on falls prevention. And so when Dave picked up the phone the other night, he said, he goes, "Can I please have your autograph?" Wow, what's going on here? I said, "Oh, yeah, well, big doings here." But anyway, he was telling, well, first of all, we were talking about, just kind of how are things going down there? Well, we were talking about illness, and
flu season's
just
brutal.
everything is great. And Dave was saying down there, he said, "Tina, they're closing schools, not because of weather. They don't really have much of that. But he said because of sickness. They've got so many kids and so many teachers out. They don't have enough substitutes."
That was what happened during the
yeah.
pandemic. They said
Yeah.
this season, the flu season's hitting particularly hard this year.
Oh, and people are not, they're getting whacked.
They must have missed the flu vaccine. Sometimes they miss it. They don't have
they don't have the right
strain.
one. Yes. Yep.
So there's been, and it hasn't been very often, but sometimes they miss it.
Well,
I bet you they missed it.
It's flu, it's neurovirus, it's RSV.
I had the norovirus.
Yeah, and
I was that week that I was supposed to go do the science fair.
Yeah.
I was so sick. I just for 24 hours I just existed.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we've had staff out too, so that hasn't helped the situation. And same thing. I mean, they're just getting whacked with, just way beyond.
You feel like you get hit by a truck.
Yeah. It's not fun.
Be completely honest. You feel like you've been hit by a truck.
Well, it was so funny because when I called Dave, it was on Sunday, and so I said, we were talking. I was telling him, he was asking me about the tax program, and I said, well, we already had to cancel twice because of weather this week. I said, and we're expecting 4 to 6 or 6 to 8. It was Sunday night, and so Dave said. And that's when Dave said, well, we're closing schools not because of weather. He goes, because it's 70 degrees down here today.
Yeah. Well,
I said, what?
There's a guy I follow called the Dad Bod Veteran. He does these little comedy bits. Mm-hmm. And he was doing the Mother Nature one. Hey, we had snow here. He lives in North Carolina.
Yeah.
We had snow here, significant snow. And then it was 85,
Yeah.
and now it's back to 40. Could you make up your mind?
I know.
He says, all right, at the beginning, all right, everybody but Mother Nature, please go away.
Yeah, right.
All right,
Exactly.
just you and me, Mother.
Yeah.
Mother, we need to have a chat.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's really crazy. And of course, down there, as Dave said, if they get 2 or 3 inches, he said we have to close everything because they don't have. They don't have plows. They don't have sand and salt and all that other good stuff. So he said, it's generally short-lived because exactly what you were just saying, Pete. It warms up pretty quickly, and everything will melt. They just kind of have to wait for that. But anyway, all right. So February, on a different note, is National Hot Breakfast Month. So breakfast is often said to be the most important meal of the day, and that's why so many of us make a point of getting up in the morning and pouring ourselves a bowl of our favorite cereal. If not cereal, then a cold bagel smeared with cream cheese, and if we're in a particular hurry, then we'll have a protein bar or one of the many breakfast bars on the market to see us through the day. But National Hot Breakfast Month encourages us to break this cycle of coldness and start the day off hot. National Hot Breakfast Month was established to encourage people to get up and start their day with a meal that's a bit more substantial than a simple bowl of cereal. Breakfast is an important meal of the day, that much is true, but taking the time to get up in the morning, prepare breakfast, and sit down and eat a freshly cooked meal is a great start to the day as well. It's not just about the meal, though. There's something about bacon and eggs for breakfast with a hot toasted English muffin smeared with butter that just makes the day better. Boy, I couldn't agree more with that.
Yep.
It's also about taking the time to take care of yourself and spend a little time on something special. So even if you can't do it every day, every once in a while, it's really nice to do something like that. And I will say, now that I have a little bit of flexibility in my schedule, not so much during tax season, but, there are some mornings, and Gary has a little bit of flexibility, and, every once in a while it'll be Gary and myself and the baby, sometimes even Grace, depending on what time her classes start. And, we'll have a nice hot meal. We'll, make some omelets or something like that. How many of us grew up with the smell of a hot breakfast floating through the house? Mom wouldn't dream of sending her children or her husband off to their day without a hearty breakfast to carry them through. Breakfast helps us feel better and see our way through to lunch without losing focus. It also helps our brain function. Education research has shown that it helps to ensure that students absorb the education or the information. Add in the time spent on yourself while preparing breakfast. You'll feel awake and alert after giving yourself some extra minutes to wake up. National Hot Breakfast Month encourages you to take this extra care of yourself for a month. We bet you'll keep doing it for the rest of the year. So I can remember my grandmother, my mother's parents. My grandfather was a sheet metal worker, and my grandmother used to get up every morning, and before my grandfather went to work, make him scrambled eggs and bacon. And my mother told me years later that the reason for that was because when my grandfather was growing up, they were very poor, lived in the tenement section in, New York City. And his father would have an egg for breakfast, but they didn't have enough for the many kids to have an egg. And my grandfather said when he grew up and he got a steady job, he was going to have eggs every day. And he pretty much did. And Mike, oh my God, I can just remember this. That would wake me up in the morning. I used to stay there for a week over the summer. They lived about an hour from us, nearer to New York City, because I'm from northern New Jersey. And just the smell of my grandmother with that bacon and scrambled. And she would, of course, always, make it for me when I was there and, the family, whoever wanted it. But that was a big deal back then. So, and now, of course, oh my gosh, Pete, the price of eggs is through the roof. Absolutely through the roof.
That's because of the bird flu, which nobody's covering.
I know. That's becoming a really big deal.
Nobody's covering this, and there's a bird flu going around.
Yep. It's actually on
I
think it's actually on the front page of the Republican today. When I stopped in at the senior center, I just did a quick check and talking to local farmers, and there was one there, and I just saw the photo of, and I don't even know who the quote was from, but I think he was one of the local farmers saying, you're not going to be coloring Easter eggs for Easter. He goes, you'll be coloring potatoes or something because they're just super expensive. So,
by the way, I found that video. Check this out.
Okay.
This video is for Mother Nature, so if you're not Mother Nature, you can go ahead and keep scrolling. Is it just you and me now, Mother? Listen, what the hell are you doing with the thermostat? Like 3 weeks ago, It was snowing down here, and it stayed that way for a good solid week because of a hard freeze. And then last week, it was 85 degrees outside and sunny, and we were all opening our windows and our sunroofs thinking spring was here. And now this week, it's 46 degrees. Look, I don't care which side of the season you want to be on. Just pick one until it's time to change it. Once you change, don't change back. Because I don't know whether I should pull my shorts out or pull all the hoodies back out of the container I put them in just last week. Seriously, this yo-yo effect is really making people sick. Especially the birds. They're flying south one day and north the next day. They don't know where the hell they're going. We would greatly appreciate if you would just decide what season it is and stick with it. Sincerely, every living creature on the face of this planet.
I love it. That was great. Where did you find him?
This guy is it's called the Dad Bod Veteran, and he's on Instagram and all the social medias.
Yep.
And he just does these little. It's kind of like it reminds me a lot of Andy Rooney.
Yes.
Like just these little
Yes.
musings of
But
like
yeah.
Andy Rooney, and then
Yep.
he and his wife, Mrs. Dad Bod Veteran, do something called "We Tasted So You Don't Have to," and they come up with some weird stuff that's being sold out there.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's great.
There's
That's
a good
that
follow
is
on
fun. Yeah.
Instagram.
That's fun.
There's a good follow on
That
Instagram.
is fun.
Because he just comes up with these little bits. Like he'll find a clip of somebody doing something completely stupid
Yeah.
on the social media, and he'll just the look,
Yep.
and then the voice, because it's not his real voice, because he's done his real voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he did one voice. People were complaining about his voice or something, and he goes and he just changed voices like 3 times during the video. And he goes,
Oh, I love it.
This is social media, folks. Leave it alone.
I love it. Well, that's great. All right. Let's go back to what we were just talking about, February being National Hot Breakfast Month and encouraging people to have a hot breakfast.
Yep.
So, unfortunately, Friday's Be My Valentine breakfast at the Senior Center is now sold out. So, if you were banking on that for your hot breakfast on Friday, hopefully you already signed up for it, because obviously we had a lot of people that signed up for it.
If not, there are some good breakfast joints in the area.
There
I'm just
are.
saying.
There are. No, absolutely, Pete. You're absolutely right. And here's a funny story for you. So Gary and I have we love going to the Crepe Tea House in Southwick. I mean, we have one in West Springfield, but we really like the Southwick one. It's a little bit bigger and it's laid out better. And it's just a really nice atmosphere. And I love crepes. I absolutely love crepes. So I get them. I don't care what. They serve them all day. I have them for dinner all the time, right? So so that's what we were, and they have, Gary's on a gluten-free diet, so they have lots of gluten-free options. So great place to go. And so anyway, Gary said to me, he was trying to figure out, there are all these big indoor track state championship things going on this weekend.
Yep.
So like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, and Gary's coaching at different places, and he's actually helping with a couple of girls from Westfield. Gary's in the his main one is East Longmeadow High School.
Always has been.
So
yep.
so they're in different divisions. So I think Gary's got to be there, and everything's at the Reggie Center in Boston. So Gary's got to be there Saturday for his team, but then he's helping 2 other teams, and there are 2 other days. So anyway, he was thinking about, he goes, well, I have an opportunity to go down Friday with the coach from Hampshire Regional, because he's also helping out there with the hurdlers. And he's
Just stay over, maybe?
Well, no, they're going to come back because the Hampshire Regional coach is Friday, because that's when Westfield is. So he's also helping with couple players in Westfield, or a couple runners in Westfield. Mm-hmm. And then Hampshire Regionals, I think, is Sunday. Gary's is Saturday. So they were it's just gonna go down for the day. So that's fine. And Gary said, we could just go together. I don't have to drive. And I said, sure. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, wait a minute. He goes, it's Valentine's Day. I was gonna take you. We were gonna go to the Crepe Tea House. I said, it's okay. This is a big deal. And of course, now they're all, everybody's watching the weather and because they were supposed to have their sectional things last Sunday, and that got canceled because of the weather.
Yep.
So, now they're looking at that. And I said to him, Gare, if you have the opportunity, just take it. I said, we don't necessarily have to celebrate Valentine's Day on Friday. We can do it Thursday. We can do it Saturday. We can do it next week. We can,
That's what I told Christy. She
Yeah.
was like, well, what are we going to do for Valentine's Day? And I'm like, we had nothing planned, and she finally said, well, I got out of work at 5:00. If you can be in my house at 5, we can do that. And go to dinner down there, because she's coming up Saturday night because of the weather.
Yep. Yep.
Same thing again.
Yep. So, we're going to be flexible. But again, folks, I apologize, but our Friday morning breakfast at the Senior Center, I mean, it's good news and bad news. It's great for us. We're excited that we sold out. We're going to have a ton of people there. But, too late if you were counting on that. But as Pete said, lots of good places for breakfast. And that's actually a nice option, I think, especially for older adults. If you don't want to get caught up in the Friday night, trying to make a reservation, everybody's going to be jammed in a wait list and all that stuff.
You can take your beloved to lunch.
Yep, you breakfast or lunch or brunch,
Brunch,
whatever. And I also want to just remind folks, too, that we do coffee connections Monday through Thursday at the Senior Center. Coffee's 50 cents. We always have goodies to go with it, 8:30 to 10:30. And it really is just a nice time to kind of, socialize with people, get out of the house a little bit. And, Carol Palmer and our mail call class, that's Michelle, whose last name is totally escaping me right now, Michelle Urbanski teaches that. They both have Tuesday, Thursday morning classes. And the mail call class is from 8 to 9. And afterwards, they all go into the great room and they all have coffee together. And they've been doing it for months. And what a nice, group of men and, as I always say, kind of its own little support system. And then Kara Palmer does it before her 9:30 class. Her folks start dribbling in around 8:45. They keep coming earlier and earlier because then, they have their coffee and they socialize and then they go work it off and they go to class.
Sure.
So it's a nice option, but it's Monday through Thursday. Of course, Friday we do Friday morning breakfast, so you would just do breakfast. But coffee connections, there's a lot of, as we've talked about on the show before, there's a lot of merit to just that socialization piece and how important that is. And this is one way to do it. So do that. And, of course, every Friday, we have Friday morning breakfast.
That's very important for seniors especially.
It is.
I've watched people that just sit there and watch TV.
People self-isolate.
Go downhill.
Yep. They
fast.
They absolutely do. They self-isolate. And, because, and I get it, especially in the winter. Believe me, it's easier to say, I'm in my jammies. I'll just watch some TV, just as you say, Pete. But you know what? 9 times out of 10, almost always people will say, you know what? I'm glad I came. I'm glad I came to lunch, or I'm glad I came to breakfast, or I'm glad I came for coffee. Because once you're out of the house and you're with other people, you don't even think about, how comfy you were in your warm apartment or your warm house. But you're right, Pete. And that is more than anything. I mean, that's one thing we know from the Harvard longitudinal study of adult development. Social connections, believe it or not, are more important than all of the other stuff that we do. All of the stuff that physically makes us healthier and stronger. Yep, because it's just that social connection. Absolutely. All right, it is 6:53. Wow, I blew through a break here.
Quick song.
But we have a quick song. So you're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC cable channel 15. So in honor of the birthday of Jim Cregan, we're going to listen to the Bare Naked Ladies singing the theme song. You don't usually hear the whole song from Big Bang Theory, but it's called The History of Everything.
Donut shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:56. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
So just to give you a little coming attraction, second hour, we have a guest from Highland Valley Elder Services, Jayme Parent Talbot, and she's the Director of Protective Services there. So we're going to be talking about that starting at about 7:15 this morning. In the meantime, we have some more announcements to make and some other national awareness Awareness Month that we're going to talk about. So let's talk a little bit about announcements.
Okay.
The Westfield Family Resource Center, which is located at 16 George Street, so it's right on the corner of George Street and Main Street, is doing a financial literacy class, how to budget with food stamps. And, I got to tell you, this is really, really important because as we all know, as we're going to the grocery store, those food prices are just soaring. So this is going to take place on February 18th, which is next week, from 5 to 6 p.m. They are requiring that you RSVP because they need to know how many people are going to be participating. And by the way, Ashley Watt, who's one of the ones that's coordinating this, she also runs the Grandparents Raising Grandchildren Support Group. But Ashley sent me this last week, and she said, Tina, you don't necessarily have to be on food stamps to get a lot out of this. It's really how to stretch your dollar when you're grocery shopping. So you do need to RSVP by this Friday, by Valentine's Day. And you can call Ashley at 413-307-3309, or you can stop off. You can stop in at the Family Resource Center. That's under the Gundara Center umbrella.
Yeah.
And I think they've been in Westfield now a couple of years. I think it's been about a 2-year period.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, remember we had them on the show.
Yep.
Really nice facility. They've got a great staff there.
If you talk to her, remember to keep sending me stuff for the bulletin board.
Okay.
They stopped doing it. They did like once.
And you know what? Because they have a new executive director. So let me. I will do that. I will let them know. Just a reminder. So that is called the How to Budget with Food Stamps. Again, it's February 18th, which is what is that Tuesday? I'm trying to think of what day I'm.
6 days from today, so next Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay. From 5 to 6 p.m. Again, give Ashley a call to RSVP 307-3309. Also, we talked before about the AARP tax program. We still have a limited number of slots available, although I have, I think, like 20 phone calls to pull off the tax line that came in yesterday. But, if you're interested in having your taxes done, please make sure. We did have on our day one, we had 2 people that were out of scope. So what that means is it means that you've got a return that's too complicated for what the tax aides can do, or you're just, your income is just so high. But generally speaking, it's complicated. We had one person who I think owned a second home in Florida that falls without, that's out of our scope. And somebody else who I think had just sold a home out of state that also got, kind of complicated for our tax folks. Other than that, everybody was right on the money. So if you're interested, you can call the Senior Center at 562-6435. But I would definitely encourage you to watch the Westfield Council on Aging Presents, the series that Dan Welch and I did. It runs every Tuesday and Thursday at 2:45 on Channel 15. Or it's on YouTube, so you can go to the city website and go to community programming, and you can watch it anytime. But it really gives, and I've had a lot of positive feedback about that. Like people were saying, oh, I saw that on Channel 15. So, they get it. They understand the whole process, why we do it the way we do it. We also have someone, Pete, coming from the state to see what we're doing and how we're doing it because we're getting, some really positive feedback. So, all good stuff. All good stuff.
There you go.
Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. I did mention that Ashley Watt runs that group. So again, her number is 307-3309. So if you're interested in learning more about that support group, they meet on a monthly basis. I'm not sure what day they've settled on. They were in between either Tuesday or Wednesday, and I'm not sure what they settled on. Ashley was really trying to leave it up to the grandparents, to let her know what was better. Okay. All right. I think that's it for now. We'll do a top of the hour break. Then we have to one more National Awareness Month that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to bring our guest on. So it is 7:01. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC cable channel 15. We'll be back in just 2.
You know
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:04. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with the chairman of the board, Pete Coles. Good morning again, Pete.
Good morning.
So February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Not a pretty subject, but something that I think we really need to talk about because the statistics are staggering. 1 in 3 adolescents is a victim of abuse by a dating partner. And I can remember when we had the radio studio when we were up at the college, and I used to, use the restroom up there, and they had flyers and posters everywhere about this subject. February Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, an issue that is all too common among young people. Each year in the United States, nearly 1.5 million high school students fall victim to abuse from a partner. Young women between the ages of 16 and 24 experience abuse at a rate almost 3 times the national average, and almost half of dating college women experience abusive behavior. Of those between the ages of 11 and 15 who have been in a relationship, 62% know a friend who has been verbally abused by a partner. More than 1 in 4 teenage girls in a relationship are repeatedly verbally abused. And while 80% of teenagers think verbal abuse is a serious issue for people their age, only 33% of teens who were in an abusive relationship ever told anyone about the abuse. What's worse is that half of teens who experience dating violence or rape attempt suicide. What can you do about it? Well, teen dating violence is a big problem. Not only is this issue widespread, but the effects are also far-reaching. You can do something to change these statistics and teach others about this epidemic. All month long, we're challenging people like you across the country to start conversations about the difference between healthy and unhealthy dating behaviors. And, I think what's particularly disturbing about this is that, from a parent's point of view, you may think that the person that your daughter or son is dating is just a wonderful person, and that may not necessarily be the case. And I know of, young people who have not had the conversation with a parent because it's like, well, my mother thinks my boyfriend is fantastic. And, he's not, but I don't want to tell her that. So, you get into all of those dynamics. It is known that 3 in 4 parents have never talked to their children about domestic violence. In light of these alarming facts, every year during the month of February, advocates join efforts to raise awareness about dating violence, highlight promising practices, and encourage communities to get involved. There are many resources available to provide information and support to victims and assist service providers and communities to decrease the prevalence of dating violence among young people. Teen dating violence is defined as a pattern of abuse or threat of abuse against teenage dating partners occurring in different forms. It could be verbal, it could be emotional, it could be physical, sexual, and digital. The National Dating Abuse Helpline provides 24-hour national web-based and telephone resources to help teens experiencing dating abuse. Young people, as well as concerned friends, parents, teachers, clergy, law enforcement, and service providers anywhere in the country can call toll free. It's 1-866-331-9474, or you can log on to the interactive website Love is Respect, all one word, loveisrespect.org, and receive immediate confidential assistance. Huge problem. It's any type of abuse, and that is going to be the topic of discussion with older abuse and elder abuse as we bring Highland Valley in here in just a few minutes. But any of those conversations are difficult to have, and what we see is just the tip of the iceberg, because what actually gets reported, what's actually known, whether it's teen dating violence, whether it's adult protective services, it's the tip of the iceberg. But what's going on underneath?
How many people live in fear of losing their livelihoods or something like that by one vengeful spouse?
Yep. Oh, it is just
vengeful spouse.
Absolutely. It's just it's incredible. But there is help available. There are resources available. There are people to, I think some of the hotlines are just amazing, and people that can at least get you started and maybe help you think of things that you might not have thought of. People sometimes get themselves in these situations and really don't know how to get out of them. But if they can share that with someone who they trust, whether it's a parent, a close friend of the family, or whatever, sometimes that person can kind of think a little bit more clearly and say, well, wait a minute, let's ask so-and-so for advice, or let's get some guidance over here or over there. So there are ways out of it. We just have to be forthcoming. All right. As I mentioned, my guest this morning is waiting in the wings, and we are going to talk about adult protective services in all its forms. And this is such a big topic and such a broad topic that we're actually going to do it in two parts. We're going to do part one today, and then we're going to do part two next month in March, and really try to cover because again, abuse is not just physical abuse. There are so many different forms of abuse. And with older adults, we also include self-neglect, and that's a whole other, topic of conversation. So we're going to try to get to all of that. So let's take a short break while I get my guests settled in here. You are listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses, and WCPC cable channel 15. And in honor of Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, we're going to listen to Shania Twain singing Black Eyes, Blue Tears. We'll be back.
Black eyes, I don't need 'em. Blue tears, give me freedom. Oh yeah. Positively never going back. I won't live when things are so out of whack. No more rolling with the punches. No more using or abusing. I'd rather die standing than live on my knees, begging please. No more black eyes, I don't need 'em. Blue tears, give me and live on my knees, begging please. Black eyes, I don't need 'em. Blue jeans, give me freedom. Black eyes all behind me. Blue jeans will never find me now. Never find me now. It's all behind me. Will never find me now. Find your self-esteem and be forever free to dream.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:15. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC Cable Channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with Jayme Parent Talbot. Did I say that right?
You did.
Got it all right? Okay. Jayme is the Protective Service Program Director over at Highland Valley Elder Services. So welcome, Jayme.
Thank you for having me this morning. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you, even though this is a challenging topic to talk about, I think, for a lot of people. So typically, Jayme, when I have someone who's never been on the show before and our viewing audience does, we don't know you.
Sure.
I don't know you other than, some emails back and forth for a few months. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Sort of where you're from, where did you go to school?
Sure.
And, kind of how you ended up, where you ended up, because as I usually say to my guests, I'm sure when you were in the 3rd grade and your teacher asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, you didn't necessarily say the director of a protective service program for adults. So, so tell us a little bit about Jayme.
Sure. I was born and raised in Northampton. My parents and 3 of my 4 grandparents were born and raised in Northampton.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I went to Northampton High School for a little bit, and then my mom got remarried, and I went to Cathedral in Springfield. I graduated from Cathedral, and then went down to Washington, D.C. for college, went to a small Catholic school called Trinity, which is over by Catholic University, and then lived there for a couple of years, worked at the Department of Education. I was the assistant to a visually impaired policy analyst. I did all of her research, all of her editing for a couple of years. Then I went to law school in Boston. I went to New England in Boston, which is down in the theater district. Left there, was there for 3 years, and then moved back home.
Nice.
To work at the district attorney's office in Northampton, where I worked for 24 years.
Wow.
Before I left and came to work at Highland Valley. So,
now, what were you doing at the district attorney's office?
So I started off as most new assistant DAs do in the district court and handled basic misdemeanor offenses. And then I moved over to the child abuse unit, where I handled both the district court and superior court child physical and sexual assault cases for about a dozen years. And then when District Attorney Sullivan came in 2011, I moved over and ran the Elders and Persons with Disabilities prosecution unit for another dozen years or so. Before COVID came in and we were all working from home, and then left there and started at Highland Valley in 2021 running the Protective Service Department.
Okay.
It was a nice transition because at the DA's office, I worked with the Protective Service Department because they would send cases to us for prosecution. So there was a nice transition, like I said, because I knew some of the staff, I knew how the program worked, although I had to learn a lot. Because it's different.
It's a different angle on it. It's a different take on this whole piece, but certainly a incredibly strong background on your part.
It was. Learning the technical pieces, the computer system, how things work, how things are defined. We are regulated by what's now called the the Office of Aging and Independence. It used to be the Executive Office of Elder Affairs.
Yes, 2 weeks ago it was the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and had been for the last 40 years that I've been in this field. But yes, they decided to change it, but now they're not even using the acronym. They're
right. Well, there has been conversation about that, actually. So the acronym is AGE, AGE. And there was, like I said, there was a conversation about why it isn't AI for aging and independence. And apparently your acronym doesn't have to coincide with the letters necessarily. And,
Yeah. And so what is the new agency? I can't even remember.
It's called it's the Executive Office of Aging and Independence.
Okay,
is what they call it. And we in protective services, just like in most of Highland Valley, our goal is to allow people to safely age at home, and that includes a right to self-determination, making your own decisions about what you want to have happen with your life. Sometimes for better or worse, depending on the scenario. But I think the independence piece is what people are focusing on much more so than the
aging piece.
Exactly.
Good point.
So that's what it's called now, and we are a designated agency to complete investigations when we receive reports when an older adult, I should say, is at risk or has been abused in some way or might be self-neglecting in some way that creates a problem for them to be safe in their home.
Okay, so let's start weeding our way through this.
Sure.
Well, we've got plenty of time.
We're
doing this in 2 parts.
We are.
Where I would like to start is let's begin, because I think it's really important that we define the word abuse.
Sure.
Because I think, again, I mentioned just before you came on, a lot of people think that abuse is strictly physical abuse, but there's more to it than that. So let's talk about how in this state, and probably nationally, how is elder abuse defined? What are the different forms that it can take?
Sure. So in the regulation, elder abuse is physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and self-neglect. Those are the 5 areas that are covered by the regulation. Some states separate self-neglect out into a different agency, but Massachusetts, it's a big umbrella. And physical abuse can be anything from what we commonly think of as assault and battery in the criminal sense, or it can be, some rough handling while you're trying to care for an elder. Maybe you're just being a little bit too rough and it causes some injury, but there's not that criminal intent piece. Emotional abuse can, be anything from, yelling at an elder in a way that impacts them emotionally, including, threatening to send them to a nursing home if they don't comply with what you want, sort of things of that nature. So those are sort of the ends of that we don't often think about when we think about abuse. You see on the news, this horrible situation, but sometimes they're just basic situations that just need a little outside help to either alleviate or mitigate, sort of reduce what the risk is. And that's why Protective Services gets involved. We're not swooping in to try to remove people from their homes, which is, I think, a lot of what people think of when they hear Protective Services. We don't want you to be involved with us because you're going to make us do something we don't want to do. But what we are doing is trying to reduce this risk so that people can safely be at home. Right. So the abuse, the definition entails a lot of things. It does, fewer and fewer of our cases are the physical abuse type of cases. We see many, many more self-neglect cases. Financial exploitation cases are certainly prevalent. I know people have, I'm sure, seen in the news the scam cases where people get caught up in things. Family members or caregivers who take advantage of an elder older adult who might need assistance with their finances, and sort of things slip under the radar, and so we get involved in those situations. And I know that you had Scott Gullett from Highland Valley over a couple of months ago to talk about our money management program that falls under the Protective Service umbrella. So I supervise Scott in his program because very often we refer cases from him from the Protective Service Department. So the self-neglect piece is a tougher topic.
It's a challenging topic. I think the other thing too is that sometimes, abuse is, believe it or not, sort of unintentional. So you might have a case, and I had a case like this years ago where, we had a husband caring for a wife with dementia, and it was pretty severe, and they were both in their 90s at that point. And that's a fairly common scenario where you have a spouse caring for another spouse, but the spouse who is the caregiver also has, some physical, sometimes some cognitive, issues as well. And basically was kind of restricting his wife to, kind of sitting in a chair. He didn't want to give her a lot to drink because he was afraid that she would have to go to the bathroom, and he had to help her to do that. And there was this real fear of what's going to happen if she falls. So his default was, well, if I don't give her much to drink, she won't have to use the bathroom. She's not going to fall, of course, but she's going to dehydrate, and there were all kinds of other problems.
I don't think people really often really think through what dehydration really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is it impacts people in many, many, many different ways that you don't even think about. You're right, but so we do often see that scenario where it's the intentional piece is not what is happening. It's the caregiver burnout and how to figure out how to handle that. And when Highland Valley does have a caregiver program, we have somebody who goes out and does intakes to try to meet with family members who are non-family members who are caregivers who are struggling with how to do that, how to keep people safely at home and do that. So that's another interesting program that we do have at Highland Valley. But you're right, we do see that. And where is that line? Is it neglect really? Is it that somebody is neglecting this person as a caregiver, or are they struggling with how to handle it?
Right.
And so that's part of what we have to assess in protective services when we get a case like that.
I think every case is unique and every case is different. And I think you're absolutely right, Jayme. I mean, I've been in this field long enough. And when I was director of the senior center, I can remember having staff saying, well, you've got to go in and get her out of that house. And I'm like, this is not child protective services.
Right, it's a very different thing.
Unless somebody has guardianship or conservatorship, I mean, it's like they are of free will. And the other thing too is that, as you mentioned before, I mean, people do have the right to make bad choices. They have the right to make choices that we wouldn't make. We'll talk a little bit more about that and kind of dive into that. But it's troubling to, I think, people in society. It's like, well, what do you mean? You know that they're not safe. They know that they're not safe. Well, sometimes, they've weighed all the alternatives and decided, and that can be tricky too. So we'll kind of go through that, what happens when someone reports abuse. We'll kind of get into that. But so we talked about physical, we talked about a little bit about self-neglect, talked a little bit about financial, as you mentioned. What about sort of the psychological, emotional, verbal stuff? What's that all about?
So we often will get reports where, it's sometimes a neighbor is hearing some yelling and it makes them uncomfortable. And so we get those reports and we do. So we screen each case by case. We have a matrix where we have to assess, do we need to even get involved? That's the other thing.
Okay.
We receive these intakes. We don't investigate every intake we receive for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's simply that we don't have jurisdiction over a scenario. So, for example, if we receive a report that an older adult is in a nursing home and somebody who works at the nursing home might be the alleged perpetrator, we don't have jurisdiction over that. We get those reports. The Department of Public Health regulates nursing homes, so we have to refer the case to the Department of Public Health for investigation, so we might not investigate that. If the older adult is perhaps a Department of Developmental Services consumer or Department of Mental Health consumer, and the crossover between 60 and over and that population is getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
If it's an allegation involving a staff member or somebody who is a contracted worker with the Department of Developmental Services and they're the alleged perpetrator, we don't have jurisdiction over that. So we refer those cases to those agencies because they have investigative bodies.
Now, let me ask you a question because I was actually going to bring this up before, but some of what I started to see when I was doing that line of work was folks who have cognitive issues, and as you said, they are aging. We're seeing them. But they are now sometimes becoming caregivers for parents and are really struggling with that because of their cognitive limitations. So if a case were reported of abuse and it looks like the abuser with whatever type of abuse, maybe verbal, maybe whatever, is someone with, who's cognitively challenged that way, are you handling that, or is it going to?
If the older adult, if the alleged victim per se, is not a person who has cognitive,
right?
They're just
they're the parent.
We would investigate that, and we would delve into what's going on there, and make a determination. Is it actually neglect? Is it that the caretaker is neglecting the older adult, or is it self-neglect in that the older adult is making a choice to let this person care for them in a way that is risky to them? And so we have to sort of look at the big picture.
But that would fall under your domain.
We would. Yep.
Okay.
Now, if it was the reverse,
yes, that's
then that might be a different. It might be a different thing. But still, it's not the older adult wouldn't be in a professional capacity. So if it's not a professional relationship, those other agencies aren't going to investigate. Then we would take it. So we have to go through really carefully and take a look at who is the actual alleged perpetrator, is their relationship to the older adult, and do we or do we not have jurisdiction over that?
Okay. All right. And so let's, you know what, let's take a break because it's 7:30. Sure. So what I want to begin to do, Jayme, is kind of work through beginning to end.
Sure.
So someone makes a call. Who are they calling? Where are they calling? What happens? What is their responsibility? So we'll get into that. Let's take a break.
Sure.
If you're just joining me, my guest this morning is Jayme Parent Talbot. Jayme is the Protective Service Program Director at Highland Valley Elder Services. And Highland Valley covers a very broad area, including Westfield and Southwick and some of the hill towns and all kinds of places. So it's a rather large sort of jurisdiction. So we're going to continue with this conversation in just a minute. We do have Valentine's Day coming up. So I'm big on not just all the romantic stuff, because, this is a day for everyone. So we are going to listen to Jackie DeShannon, back from the 70s, singing "What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love." You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses, and WCPC cable channel 15. We'll be right back.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hillsides enough to climb. There are oceans and rivers enough to cross, enough to last till the end of time. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another meadow. There are cornfields and wheat fields enough to grow. There are sunbeams and moonbeams enough to shine. Oh, listen, Lord, if you want to know what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, oh, but just for everyone.
What the world
is love. But the what is love? Is love. Is love. What the what is love?
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Saturdays were made for polka. Tune in to the Polka Jammer Network starting at 6 a.m. and Polka Hall of Famer Billy Bellina, Breakfast at BB at 8:30.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:35. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses and WCPC cable channel 15. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I'm in the studio this morning with Jayme Parent Talbot. Jayme is the Protective Service Program Director at Highland Valley Elder Services, and we're talking about elder abuse kind of in all of its forms, and that includes in Massachusetts self-neglect, so people that are not taking care of themselves well or in a healthy way. So Jayme, I want to get into sort of the what happens if someone knows or suspects that someone is being abused, and sort of what's the chain of events. Mm-hmm. But before we do that, I'm sure we have viewers saying, what? Why are we talking about this? It's just this little tiny problem with a few people. What does it look like nationally? What are the, just statistically, how prevalent is this problem, both locally in our area as well as nationally?
Sure. So it is more prevalent than we certainly generally contemplate. In our area, so in the Highland Valley catchment area, which, mm-hmm. as you said earlier, includes the Westfield, Southwick, Tolland area. Yep. Also includes most of Hampshire County, yep. Northampton, Amherst, Hadley. It doesn't include in Hampshire County, South Hadley, Ware, and Belchertown. Those are within the Greater Springfield Senior Services catchment area. So over the last, since the summer, we have gotten in excess of 100 cases per month that we need to screen and review. There's some dips here and there in the months, but it's been consistently over 100 cases every month. I say a fair portion of those cases involve self-neglect, and I think mm-hmm. that is certainly with the economy something that's becoming more and more prevalent. Yeah. People are struggling, trying to make ends meet, and then that affects their emotional well-being, and then that affects their ability to sort of just manage their their living space.
Sure, absolutely.
Then we also have, as a result of again the economy and sort of things that are going on, we're seeing more and more potential for elders to be unhoused mm-hmm. because of the housing market. Then the other sort of big chunk of what we're seeing, and nationally it's consistent with what we're seeing here in our catchment area, is the financial exploitation piece of that. And so I would say the self-neglect and financial exploitation are really the bigger cases that we're, higher level of cases that we're seeing both locally and nationally.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about financial exploitation, we're going to delve into each of those 5 areas at some point, but is the financial exploitation does not have to necessarily be by the stranger who calls on the phone mm-hmm. and says, your grandson needs, gift cards or right. $200,000 because he's in jail. Right. It often can happen right within the family, so right. that's a whole other thing. But we'll touch on all of that. We have two different sessions to do this with.
Sure.
So, Jayme, let's start with mm-hmm. if I suspect, or if I know, mm-hmm. because I've seen it or heard it, mm-hmm. that an older adult is being abused, mm-hmm. Who am I calling? What am I doing?
Sure. So if an individual has reasonable cause to believe that an older adult has either been abused or is at risk for being abused, and that's based on personal observation or information that comes from a reliable source. If that information were to come into your hands, There are two ways that you can file a report. The first way is a 1-800 number. It's 1-800-922-2275. It's manned. It's called the Central Intake Unit. It's manned 24/7 by staff hired by the Executive Office of Aging and Independence. They take the calls. The second way is there's an online portal that you can go online and file if you believe, and it has you just type in the information. Both a phone called in report and a digital report make their way into an electronic queue that comes to the attention of Highland Valley. I get an email as soon as a case gets either called in or completed on the intake, and then I'm able to access the system to see what those cases are.
Okay, so let's just review and back up. So the 1-800, is it an 800?
It is 1-800.
1-800 number that's at the state level.
Correct.
So this is any case, anybody in Massachusetts who's calling about a case in Massachusetts is calling that one number.
That's correct.
Then that somebody there says, oh, this is in Westfield, Massachusetts. This goes to Highland Valley.
Correct.
You are our reporting agency, but people aren't calling you directly.
Correct.
They're calling the 800 number.
Up until about 2017, you
we
could
used to call
directly
Highland Valley.
to Highland Valley, and in 2017 they created a centralized intake unit who now takes the calls, and then once the older adult is reported to live in a certain area, it triggers in the computer system the report to come to Highland Valley digitally.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let's say I'm a neighbor, and I'm very concerned about what's happening next door. I'm hearing different things, I'm seeing different things, and I call the 800 number. How involved do I have to be after that? What is my responsibility? Because there are people who won't call because it's like, oh, I don't want to get involved. Like I feel sorry for Mrs. So-and-so over there, and I really want to help, but I don't want to get involved.
Your involvement with us is relatively limited, I would say.
Okay.
So first of all, we don't encourage it because it makes it a little bit harder for us to investigate, but you can file anonymously. You can just leave your name out of it entirely if you would like.
Okay.
The second thing that people need to know is that we do not disclose the name of the reporter to the older adult, to their family. The only individuals that we do disclose the name to would be the district attorney's office if we believe after our investigation a crime has occurred.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I say we don't disclose the name, it goes all the way through the system. Once you're referred to as the reporter initially, we don't refer to you as the reporter again in the course of our investigation. And if someone were to ask us for a copy of the report that we generated, we would redact your name out of the report.
Okay.
We would redact confidential information out of the report. Anything that would help somebody determine who the reporter was is redacted.
Okay.
Involvement-wise, other than that, you would, if we were to screen the case out and we're talking about process, the reporter would get a phone call from us letting us know that we screened the case out and why. And then you would get a letter telling you that we screened the case out. If we screen the case in and we're investigating, the assigned investigator would call the reporter and speak to the reporter to see if they had any additional information since they filed the report.
Okay.
And pretty much that's it.
Okay. Well, I think that's important for people to know, because I think a lot of times people are a little hesitant because it's just like, oh, I don't want retaliation. I don't want whoever if it is physical abuse, I don't want the son, grandson, granddaughter, whoever it is, caretaker coming after me.
Sure.
And sometimes the reporter is older themselves. So, because in some cases it's like, this is my best friend and I know this is what, a family member, caregiver, whoever is doing. So, okay. All right. So so it's an 800 number or an online portal. You get that information, you get it.
Correct.
And now what do you do with that?
So either myself or one of the two supervisors. So our department is made up of myself, 2 supervisors, and 6 investigators.
Okay.
The investigators we have sort of divided up into 2 catchment areas. So 3 of the investigators are assigned to handle cases in the Westfield, Southwick, Tolland,
Okay.
Hilltown type area. And then the other 3 have the East Hampton, Hadley, Amherst. Northampton, because it's right where we're located, is a what we call a neutral zone. Any of the 6 could take that.
Okay.
So the report comes in, we take a look at it. We make a, do we know this consumer already? Is this someone we've been involved with in the past? Do they have any formal or informal supports already in place that might address the concern? Do they have capacity? That's a whole nother topic that we could talk about for a fair amount of time. And then we decide what.
But when you say, do they have capacity, define that for our viewing audience.
Do they have the ability to understand the risk that they're facing and understand that there are pros and cons to addressing that risk and what could happen if they don't address that risk?
Okay.
Is how we assess it. It's not the generalized capacity that perhaps a medical professional may make a determination on. It isn't, competency or capacity to be involved in a court proceeding. It's, do they understand the risk? Do they understand what might happen if they don't address the risk and what the circumstances are?
And how would you handle that differently based on what you have determined? So if you determine that someone understands the risk, understands, what happens if they don't do anything, versus somebody who doesn't, is cognitively compromised and just doesn't really understand it.
Sure.
How would you handle those differently?
So if it's our determination that they do have that capacity, then we proceed with our investigation, speak to other people. We also do the same thing if we're concerned about their capacity, but we take additional steps. We would reach out to their primary care physician to see if the doctor has noted any concerns about their capacity. Have they maybe determined that maybe they need to be further evaluated for that?
Okay.
If we don't get sufficient information from that and the risk is high enough, we may speak to our independent assessor and arrange for our independent assessor to go out and complete an assessment to determine if there's an issue of capacity and then consider whether we would need to file for guardianship.
Okay.
But the risk has to be, high
substantial.
enough to kind of step in that way. Sometimes there are family members who are able to do that before we have to. It's really a last option for the agency to do that, especially if there are involved family members who are able to take those types of actions. So.
All right. So now you've got the case. You have make a determination. You start the investigation. Make a determination. What would make it so that you would rule it as something that you're going to keep working on, or if I'm the reporter and I get a letter saying, "Yep, we checked into this and it's not going anywhere."
Sure. So,
what's the difference there?
So the terminology is we've screened in and screened out.
Okay.
If we screen out the case, it could be that it's something that the Department of Developmental Services or the Department of Public Health needs to investigate. It could be that it doesn't rise to the level of, it's the yelling piece.
Yeah, there's an area of concern that's not necessarily falls under the definition of abuse.
Correct. And even if it falls under the definition, the risk presented isn't so sufficient that protective services would need to be involved. So the yelling piece, there's yelling, it's uncomfortable for the neighbor, but the yelling that's reported there's no threats involved in the yelling. It's just, some yelling back and forth. We might not investigate that. And so the reporter would get a phone call from us telling us that we're not investigating it. But if it is screened in, we start the investigation. The first thing that the investigator does would be to call the reporter and again find out, is there something different? The piece that makes people uncomfortable, which is the next step, is when we go to see the older adult. By regulation, we are required to make that visit unannounced. We don't call in schedule, we don't make a time, we knock on the door, and that is uncomfortable for people. A stranger is showing up at your door and asking you just to speak with them. In very limited circumstances, we do schedule, and if there's some type of a significant safety risk, But generally, we just knock on the door and say
now,
hi.
So if you've screened someone out, they don't get the visit.
They don't get the visit.
Okay, all right. So the visit comes when people are screened in, and
Correct.
the visit is one of your investigators.
One of my investigators.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly. Knock on the door, identify themselves. We've had a report of concern. Could you speak with us for some about the concern? Some people are willing to speak with us. Some people are not.
So let me ask you this: if the caregiver answers the door, and the caregiver is the person who the concern is about as the abuser, how do you handle that?
We ask for the older adult.
Okay.
And then we ask the caregiver to give us some privacy to speak with the older adult. Sometimes they will give us that. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes the worker will take themselves out of the situation and may come back with a second worker so that we can divide and conquer. Because we need to have an older adult feel comfortable speaking with us about what the concern is. And sometimes the caregiver doesn't want to separate, and so we have to figure out how to deal with that scenario.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very simple, and they are willing to allow us to speak with this person, and sometimes we have to come up with a better way to do it.
Okay. All right.
When they go out and meet with the person, they don't, like I said, they don't tell them who reported.
Right.
They will speak with them. They will do this attempt to determine capacity. There is a tool that all of the workers are trained on. It's called the Interview for Decisional Ability. It's out of the Cornell Medical Center, and you are not allowed to go out and do interviews with elders until you've been trained to complete that assessment.
Okay. So it's kind of a screening, I imagine, for them to determine whether or not this person has the wherewithal to know what's happening.
Sure.
And,
Exactly. The interview covers a wide range of topics. It's not just what the concern is. We're trying to get a good picture.
Yeah.
What the financial situation is, socioeconomic background. Did you work? Where did you work? Medical, functional ability. Can you make your own meals? Can you get around? Can you sort of all the things that might affect an individual's ability to address the concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to put it all in context,
right?
Because sometimes when things are taken out of context, it seems worse than it is, or better than it is. I mean, it goes in each direction, but I think that's super important. As we talked about, is it a spouse caring for a husband or wife, and is it caregiver burnout? Is it I can't do this anymore, I have no patience? I mean, it is very trying. I'm going to be doing a training later on this morning on dementia for some of our volunteers, and it can be very trying when someone has asked you 500 times in the last hour the same question because they have a form of dementia. They can't remember that they asked it, but even the most patient caregiver can really it can really wear on you.
Sure.
So, that's not an excuse for being abusive, but it helps to put it into context to say, is it that this caregiver needs some relief? And, that's the solution, not, throwing him in jail and putting her in a nursing home.
Right, exactly. And we also, sort of the other thing is we receive reports, and the reports say, oh my God, this living situation is untenable.
Right.
I can't, and then sometimes we get there, and we've seen myself, people who work in my department, we have seen a lot. And sometimes we get there and we're like, oh, this is what they think is so hard. And, and so you have to put into perspective what the reporter's experience is and what they see, because sometimes we get the reports and we're like, it sometimes is not exactly what we see when we get there.
I always say a picture says 1,000 words, and a home visit, when I used to train staff, I said a home visit will tell you so much. You'll get so much information just walking in that room, looking at the setup, looking around. And as you said, everybody's coming at it from a different perspective.
Right.
So, what may be horrible, you've seen horrible, like really horrible. So,
Right, exactly. And so we have to take that into perspective. the investigators will also talk to other collaterals. We might talk to family members. We might not. The older adult involved in our investigation still has a right to confidentiality, even though we've received this report, and we have a right to, we have a responsibility to honor that. And so we often will get calls from people, demanding to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And by regulation, there's confidentiality, and we're not allowed to divulge all of what's going on just because you're her daughter or her son or his son or her daughter. So we're careful about that. So the investigation sort of continues on until we've spoken to those people we believe we need to speak to, and then we determine whether we can what's called substantiate.
Okay.
Do we have enough information to say this risk exists, has occurred, and substantiation in older adult world is 51%. It's not the beyond a reasonable doubt you see in criminal court, or it's 51%.
Okay.
And if we don't hit that, amount, we don't feel like we can substantiate, we close the case.
Okay.
And where we don't continue working with the elder in protective services.
Yes.
If we do substantiate the case, we will then, with the older adult, develop a service plan.
Okay.
Come up with a way to help address the risk. Sometimes it's just to mitigate it, reduce it a little bit. Sometimes it will help alleviate the risk, but we do that in conjunction with the older adult. We go out and have another visit. This time it's scheduled. We call, have the visit, talk about what services might be available to help address the concern, and then work with the elder to try to get those services into place.
Okay.
And then we would see the elder every 30 days until we feel as though we've addressed the concern, because protective services is a short-term intervention.
Right.
It's not something that we're going to stay involved with for years and years. We get in, we assess, determine whether something is going on, provide services to address what the risk is, and then try to get ourselves out of the involvement with the elder, because they get to live their life. We don't need to be there all of the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that could be anywhere from 30 to 60 to 90 days, generally, depending on the allegation. Sometimes that is pushed out a bit if we reach one of those scenarios where capacity is a concern and perhaps we need to get an assessment and then go to court. That may push those things out a little bit. And so, but that's, sort of the nutshell.
So I'm sure that over the years, Jayme, you've seen, and are there cases where you go in and you just feel like this is such a risk to the safety of the person? What do you do in that case?
Well, it depends what the risk is.
Okay.
And, if it's sometimes we call crisis and we have crisis come out because it's a mental health. Sometimes it's a hoarding and we need to speak to somebody about getting heavy chore in to try to help clean it out. It really depends on what the risk is, and if it's an active risk right there and then, or is it a risk that's been ongoing and we're trying to delve our way into it. But it depends on the risk. Certainly I've had workers have to call the police in to help with a concern or crisis. And we just,
now, when you say crisis, I'm always confused about that. Who exactly is crisis? Like who? What is that? In the Westfield area, it's BHN, Behavioral Health Network, and there's a phone number you call. I have a concern about an older adult who's living in their home, whatever they're making threats to harm themselves or harm somebody else, or they can't, and somebody will come out or generally somebody will come out and do an assessment to see if the person's at risk and might need to be transported to the hospital or be assessed further. And then Westfield Police have an embedded mental health co-responder too, one in the day shift, one on the night shift. Okay. All right.
And so get them involved if necessary.
Okay. All right. We are going to. I blew through the last break, and I did that on purpose because I didn't want to break the flow.
Sure.
So
I just realized that.
yeah. No. I'm keeping an eye on that. But I thought, you know what? It's important that we. I thought it was important that we get through that whole what happens when someone reports. Obviously, we have a lot to cover in your next segment with us, Jayme. But I want to thank you for coming in. Again, my guest this morning has been Jayme Parent Talbot, Protective Service Program Director at Highland Valley Elder Services. I did ask Pete, but I'm not sure whether we could or we couldn't. But I'm going to try next time that you're on that we can have that 1-800 number on the bottom of the screen so people would know to call that number. But I want to thank you for coming in and sort of setting the stage. We do have these 5 different areas. We're going to delve into that a little bit more so people have a better understanding. We'll talk a little bit about what a plan might look like if someone refuses help.
Sure.
And I think my guess is that you don't just walk out the door and say, okay, well, we're done here. You know, I would think that there's something else. And then, you know, some follow-up for what happens down the road. So, again, Jayme Parent Talbot, that's a mouthful. Jayme Parent Talbot. I wanted to make sure I got the parent and the Talbot in the right order. That's why I keep looking at my cheat sheet. Protective Service Program Director with Highland Valley Elder Services. She will be back next month. We'll continue this discussion. In the meantime, you are listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses and CPC. Cable channel 15. I do want to remind folks we are expecting nasty weather tonight into tomorrow morning. For my tax people, if you have a tax appointment, please watch. You can turn on channel 15. You can turn on channel 22, channel 40, channel 3. If we have a delayed opening, then you will be dropping your tax packets off between 9:45 and 10 o'clock. If we are closed altogether, we're just going to have to reschedule all 30 of you to sometime in later March. And if it all passes us by, then it's business as usual. So make sure that you're keeping an eye out for that. We're gonna finish with a Valentine's song. But I love this. There's a thing called Palentine's Day. For pals, not necessary for lovers. But I thought, well, that's a really nice thing. So I thought we're gonna play Bruno Mars. We'll go out with "Count on Me," and I will see you next week. All right, that's a wrap.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. You'll always have my shoulder when you what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. You can count on me, 'cause I can count on you.
Underwriting for Community Radio.